Welcome to Thriving Your Love, a podcast where we will guide and help you improve your most precious relationships in life. This podcast is produced and hosted by certified emotionally focused therapist Claudio Vargas Silva, licensed marriage and family therapist, and Trisha Kim Walsh, also licensed marriage and family therapist. Welcome back, viewers and listeners, to Thriving Your Love with Trish and Claudio. Today, we have another great episode in store for you. The title of it is called The Origins of Anger. And Claudio, it's like the universe read your mind when you talked about this topic with me. I have been feeling a lot of anger lately. I was just talking with a client yesterday about anger and its origins. So it feels like the timing, I say this to clients all the time. Feel like the universe is all around us, reminding us of what we need to be cognizant of, be aware of. And I imagine everyone who's listening is feeling some awareness of their anger and their body and their actions and their words in the news, with their friends, with their family, with their colleagues. So I'm excited, even if it is an emotion that I will admit, Claudio, I struggle with. I've had to really work very hard in my own personal therapy, and there's a lot of shame in this. And so I'm so excited that we get to talk about the origins. Most importantly, what do we do with that when from the moment we're born, we might have been crying with anger of, I like this womb, I like this comfort, I like this safety. And now I'm out in this world with all these feelings and reactions. Yeah, Claudio. So let's dive into origins of anger. And I believe we're probably going to have a couple of episodes in this. So get ready, everyone. Buckle your safety belts. We're about to go into the anger zone. And I promise it will have good outcomes. We're here to help.
Yes, and I liked what you said about awareness because anger can be confusing, right? First of all, we cannot get rid of anger, and we shouldn't actually, because it's a healthy emotion. But the thing is that sometimes it can go over the board and we can see how much damage it can cause, how many lives have perished. Still we see over the news. Sometimes even couples, like we work with couples and families, and we can see how much abuse sometimes, and if even murders that happen because of that. So for example, a parent will put the baby in the microwave because they are angry at the baby. So we can see how anger can get out of hand. And the first thing is that, as I was saying, anger is not bad. It is there to protect us from danger. Imagine if we couldn't be angry, right? If people could hurt us, could do something against us, and we didn't have how to defend ourselves, we didn't have this emotion, maybe we were dead, right? Because we couldn't defend ourselves. So the thing is how we can manage this feeling that it has, that we can do with it what it was intended for, right? The intention was to protect us. The intention wasn't that we would hurt innocent people, that we would traumatize others, that we would become abusive and violent. And we can see how many people also, they had some experiences with anger that they are so afraid of their own anger that they cannot set boundaries. So we can see that we can go to one extreme of abuse and violence, but we can go to another extreme that we can be doormats, that we don't have how to defend ourselves, and we are so unsure if we should defend ourselves, and we think that people are always right. So it's so hard sometimes to manage this feeling. And the thing, Trisha, is that it has a lot to do with trauma. Because let's say you talked about a baby, right? So the baby comes to the world, and the baby might not have much trauma depending how the baby was as a fetus, like how the environment was in the uterus. So the baby might come with no trauma at all. And the baby has as the healthy anger, and the baby's gonna show, and we see like how babies will throw something, they are protesting, and it's so funny because we see that a small being, right, that a small human being with so much power setting boundaries. And we as parents, if we also if we don't have much trauma, we can receive that anger as information that is going to show us what is happening to that baby, how the baby is feeling, what we should do for this baby to feel better, right? So this can be pretty healthy that the baby has that anger. But imagine now that the baby is going to find an environment of people who have traumas of their own and who cannot deal with this baby in a healthy way, to be responsive and accessible to this baby and understanding and empathetic. So now the baby might run into some relational problems with the adults and might develop some trauma, might feel dismissed by his or her feelings, and which will develop in the trauma that we want to talk a little bit to people, right, Trisha, to show what happens, how anger can go wrong sometimes.
What I really appreciate, Claudio, is you naming that anger is a human emotion that we're all born with. It may be the very emotion we came out with. It may be the emotion we experience from our caretaker. And the reminder again is it's not only a healthy feeling, but it's a universal feeling, and that it has actually embedded into our brain, that we have an amygdala in our brain that is the fire alarm that lets us know when we are experiencing danger. And we can't just sit and ponder and process, oh, is this dangerous or not? If we need to take immediate action to protect ourselves, it's between life and death. That is what our ancestors has gifted us, right? Is the ability to immediately respond to fight, flight, freeze, fawn. And we call that lizard brain, the reptilian brain. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with it. It's certainly something when I'm doing trauma work with my clients and they say, I want this to go away, Trish. Can you fix this? I say, I have good news and bad news. They say, I want to hear the bad news first. I say, the bad news is you can't do away with anger. Anger is going to be with you for the rest of your life. Your amygdala is what has gotten you and gotten us as a human species to continue living on this planet. The good news is you can befriend your anger. You can understand why anger is there, is it's here to tell an origin of a story of survival. And if we can really understand that once was in the past of running, fleeing from safety, from predators, is a different experience that we're having right now in modern day. And that's where things get really interesting, is to talk about how trauma looks in the human body, in the human brain, how it's evolved than when it looked when we were cave people back in the day, Claudio. So again, I really want everyone to hear very loud and clear. Not only we're supportive of anger, we want you to understand that anger is something that lives inside of all of us. And the more we can learn about its purpose and its message, that we can also understand what we can do, not to control it, to be beside it and understand the story that it's trying to tell us in our relationship to others. And most importantly, the way we view ourselves, our own beliefs toward ourselves. And that includes our self-confidence, our self-worth.
Yes, and Trisha, what you said about the stress response or the fight, flees and freeze, right? And we see the connection between anger and fear, because we have anger when we feel threatened, right? When we feel threatened, we feel like we are in danger and we need to defend ourselves. And then we are accessing, like we are trying to see this thing that we perceive as a threat. Is it something that I can face, right? And if we perceive as something we can face, then we are going to fight. And that's where anger comes, right? I think this is a threat that I can fight, and then I will, right? I'm not going to back away. I'm going to fight this. But we see the association like between like anger and fear, because if I think this threat is too powerful, then my choice would be to flee or to flight, right? So then we don't want to face, we are really fearful. And sometimes we have these two feelings that will come in different times. So let's say that we perceive that we can face that and we become big and we yell and we threat and we say a lot of things because we want to block that person to do something that we think is hurtful. So we want the person to stop. But later, when we become calmer, and we think, oh my goodness, I think I might have exaggerated. And what if that person is going to leave me, right? So now comes the fear. And then we are afraid I'm going to lose that person. I have that person. And then we can go back and we can apologize and we can do something to see if reinstate the connection because we don't want to lose that person who we love and it's so important to us. But then as we go back, something could go wrong and we could become again angry at the person, and it's so tough, and it's going to be mixed with feelings of guilt and sometimes shame too. So we can see like how all those feelings could come, like when we feel guilty, oh my goodness, I did something to that person I love, and what that person could be feeling now, that person could feel hurt, or I'm such a bad person. So, and the more trauma we have, Trisha, the more we have of these feelings. And then I want to bring something that we talked in another podcast about compassion, because if we have all these feelings that are happening, it is so important that we have compassion towards ourselves. And sometimes in our guilt and our shame, we don't have compassion. We are very hard towards ourselves. And it's so important that we have compassion, because if all these feelings are happening, it shows that there is trauma. It shows that we have suffered in our childhood, and that was hard. And we are still suffering right now. Those things are very present. And this is why, right, Trisha, when we are working with couples, we are so aware that we are healing them of their traumas. Their traumas are very present today, and it's coloring their relationships right now. And it's bringing so much pain. So this is why I say that it is very important in situations like that we have compassion, that we have acceptance. It's not about saying, no, I'm right about doing all of this. It's not saying that we are right. Compassion is totally neutral. Compassion is it's not about being right or wrong. It is about having empathy, because my anger is showing that I have a traumatic history. There's something that happened in the past, and that thing that happened in the past that might have lasted sometimes an entire childhood or maybe a good amount of time, that is still hurting us now in the present, and it's preventing us from being happy and having a good connection with the people we love, Trisha.
Yes, all of that. There's layer after layer of understanding. And one area I like to work with clients around their anger is your anger is telling you something. Your amygdala is telling you something. Thinking of the amygdala as like a fire alarm that it's sensing, a smoke detector, if you will. It knows something feels wrong. And in the human body, often we are taught at a very young age, you got to be strong. You can't look weak, right? I mean, I don't know one culture that doesn't subscribe to don't cry. Don't show those tears. Don't be sad. Be strong. Toughen up. I mean, isn't that the first thing when we start to cry as kids, even as adults, right? I hear that even with my adult clients is we don't have a lot of time to sit in the sadness. The anger is more received, and it also is creating more chaos, and we're seeing it across the country. We're seeing it all over the world. But our anger is an emotion that is really complex complex because we're told not to cry. We're also told not to talk about our feelings a lot of the time. Then what do we feel? We feel angry. We can't say anything. So your anger, what I tell clients is your anger is telling you something. Your body is telling you something, and we want to listen. So that's what we're doing in this work, right, Claudio, in this podcast of Thriving Your Love is listen to your anger and know that your anger is trying to tell you something, is it doesn't want to be taken advantage of. It doesn't want to be disrespected. It doesn't want to be seen as weak. It wants to be strong. It wants to feel that never again will I ever experience that trauma as a child, as a
Mm-hmm.
teenager, in that romantic relationship. And what is fear? One of my consultants would share this with me is on the opposite side of anger is fear. And that is
Mm-hmm.
also grieving and sadness, which we've talked about in our podcast. We've had a lot of episodes. So tag that if you're interested, fellow listeners, if you're, we have a lot of different topics we've discussed, but anger, there's an origin of anger, and that's also pain, pain of I don't feel safe. And when someone doesn't feel safe, there's only so many coping strategies we have. In emotionally focused therapy, Sue Johnson has named about that reptilian brain is we either pursue or we withdraw. And the
Mm-hmm.
pursuing can look critical, it can look mean, it can be cruel, it can be big, it can be scary. And withdrawing can be devastating because it has a different kind of lethal impact of getting defensive and getting silent and going away, which creates disconnection. It's, I don't want to be hurt by you, so I'm never going to let you do that again. You won't have access to me. So this is where estrangements, falling outs, and separations can happen. So again, anger is a seed that gets planted, and just like a weed, it can grow and it can get bigger and bigger and bigger because we're just basically saying is, I don't want to feel that ever again. I will find a way to protect by being strong and fearless so I don't look weak, that I can help myself and protect myself in a way that I wasn't protected then. I'm never going to let that ever happen to me like it did back then in the past.
And there is something also, Trisha, that is very similar to flight is freeze. The person might be so afraid and see that if I go away, my partner could be upset at me or frustrated and even angry at me. And if I say something, it's dangerous, so I'm gonna just be here in hope that my partner forgets and stops. And but the non-responsiveness might cause the partner to also be upset. So we see that the relation. And what I see also sometimes, Trisha, is that when people are overcoming their trauma, they feel more empowered. So let's say that their fear decreases. It could come anger because now they think, oh, it's not dangerous as I thought, and I can face this person. But the thing that is happening is that the person is still in some way like that anger was inside. It wouldn't show because of fear, but it was there. And in many people now in their relationships who are angry, and sometimes especially if they're kids, because when they were children themselves and they were so afraid, right, that they didn't feel like they could set boundaries. They couldn't show their feelings. They couldn't protest because the other person, the adult, would be dangerous to them. So they had really to bite their tongue. They had to keep a lid on their anger. But now, when they are with someone who is safer, and that they feel that they can show that, and it comes with full force. And sometimes, especially their children, they could be so strong that they can become abusive because now they feel, well, now I can show, now there's not so much danger, I am stronger, then it's gonna come. And this is why it's so important to really treat that trauma. So I was thinking, Trisha, that we stop now because this thing we have so much to say about anger, and we want to really invite our listeners to keep with us, to go all the way as we talk about anger, as we try to see as many angles as we can see, and not forgetting what we just said, right, Trisha? First of all, it is a healthy feeling. It can go wrong because of the trauma that we had, but it's still our purpose is not to eliminate anger, right? Because if we eliminate anger, first of all, it's impossible. We don't eliminate that feeling. It can be just there inside, as I was saying, like, because for some fear, it could be inside of fear or guilt, right? Another thing too is, as I said, having compassion. Having compassion towards ourselves because we might have had a trauma, that this is why we have so much anger inside. And also have compassion towards our partner if our partner also has anger, because that anger can hurt us and we can feel really very hurt and resent our partner. But also remembering that is someone who might have had trauma as well. And sometimes we can have compassion towards someone who could turn out to be abusive and violent, but know that inside resides someone who had a tough time during their childhood, and that's why they are so angry and so out of control, because they felt so weak, and they now are confusing. They are projecting the image of the people who hurt them to us, and they are thinking that we are so powerful that they have to show all that force, and actually they don't need, because we love them. And it's so sad when they are so confused and they cannot see things straight.
Right, Claudio. All of that is so insightful and wisely shared. I would invite our listeners to also reflect on everyone you have ever known in your life has pain you know nothing about. And so that's a powerful reminder as we come to the close for today, is there's so much to everyone's origin of emotions, and anger is also a root of pain and trauma, and that to be a human being, you are going to experience some forms of trauma, lowercase t, smaller traumas or big traumas. And I would invite, as a light homework assignment, for everyone to ask, what are some examples of really healthy demonstration of anger in your life with people that you identify as role models, that you might have said, hey, that's a really good demonstration of healthy expression of anger. Maybe it's in a book, maybe you've read it in an article, maybe you've seen it on a TV show or a movie, or maybe you know this individual. So just be thinking about also good demonstrations of anger, because we often go to the examples of what we saw that was harmful. But I would also invite people to think and reflect upon themselves and their own demonstrations of healthy anger, also those in their lives that they can think of, even fictional characters that you might have said is, that's a good way to live. And we'll talk more about this at our next podcast. Claudia, thank you so much for bringing up this topic. I am so appreciative of the richness that we offer in dialogue of how we thrive our love every day. And first and foremost, we do to ourselves so we can give to others. Thank you so much for tuning in with us today. We hope you'll join us soon again for our next episode of Thriving Your Love.